Good afternoon, countrymen and women. Um, a very good afternoon to you all. I'm here um, preparing to go and visit President Hakainde Hichilema at State House so that we can deliver a present for him. So the present that we have prepared for him, or which we are going to prepare for him, is essentially a graph. Um, and we are going to add a birthday uh, card as well, so that he can enjoy the good message in the birthday card, as well as go through the graphs that we are going to present to him. We know that the president likes to use graphs to illustrate things. So there are 2 points which we wish to illustrate to the president using graphs. And that is the reason why we are giving him those 2 graphs as his birthday present. So right now, I'm going to draw the graphs, the 2 graphs that we want to present to the president. So basically, the first graph is a graph with regard to the cost of living. So you've got the y-axis and the x-axis. I hope I still remember my mathematics correctly. You have the x-axis there showing the cost of living, and then the y-axis there. I decided to use a plain paper and not a graph paper because a plain paper looks more clear. So this is the y-axis is the cost of living for a family of 5 in Osaka. So this is kwacha basically. And on the x-axis you have months in office for President HH. So these are the months that he has spent in office. So we're going to divide this in basically intervals of 5. So you've got 5 months there, you have 10 months there, you have 15 months there, you have 20 months there. So basically the president has done, I think, about 21 months, if I'm not mistaken. So basically this is the x-axis. And then this side, in terms of the cost of living, we'll start at 6,000 kwacha. So 6,000, and then 7,000, and then 8,000 kwacha, and then 9,000 kwacha. So the source, here down we're going to put source of this information. So basically, which is JCTR. So every time you have a graph, let me explain so far. Every time you have a graph, if it is a genuine graph, the person is supposed to give you the source of the data used in the graph, because the graph is merely a summary of data. So you need to explain where that data is coming from. So on our first graph, we have clearly indicated that the source of our data is JCTR, which is the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection. Now the JCTR publishes a monthly basic foods basket publication, which shows the cost of living, basically just food, for a family of 5 in different cities across the country. So for us, we are going to focus on the cost of living in Lusaka as one of the cities in Zambia. Now, when you look at the difference between the graph we are about to complete here and the graph which President Hakainde Hichilema prepared during his press conference and presented to the people, you realize that the graph which the president presented to the people did not have the source of the data which he was illustrating in that graph. Once a graph doesn't have a source of the data, it becomes very suspicious because it can be cooked. A graph can be cooked by anybody. But if you put the source of the data, a person can go to that source and get the data and process the data and generate their own graph, and then compare it to the graph that you have presented to the people, whether it is accurate or not. So those are the two main differences in terms of the graph that we are preparing here, which shows the cost of living for a family of 5 in Lusaka, and against the months in office that the president has been in office, which shows our source. So let me complete our graph. So when the president took over office on the 24th of August, the cost of living for a family of 5 in Lusaka was around 5,800 kwacha. So which means we'll start our graph somewhere there. And then as we speak right now, the cost of living for a family of 5 for the month of May is around 9,300 kwacha. So it's somewhere there. So if you plot that against the months in office that the president has been in office, you find that it takes us to that point there, starting from this point. That is not to say the graph has been straight, no. There are certain months when the cost of living fluctuated, came down a little bit, and then it continued on the upward trend. So that was around November of last year. So we'll start our graph. It will go like that, and then it fluctuated for a few months, and then it is there. So you can see that there might have been, you can come around, you can see that there might have been a few fluctuations in the cost of living, but overall, during the tenure of President Hakainde Hichilema, the cost of living has significantly gone up. From around 5,800 kwacha when he took office for a family of 5 to about 9,200 kwacha as at end of May. So that is how high the cost of living has gone. And this particular graph is very important for the president, so that even as he talks about other things, even as he talks about CDF, even as he talks about free education, he should bear in mind that under the 21 months that he has been in office so far, the cost of living has almost doubled from around 5,800 kwacha in August of 2021 to around 9,200 kwacha as at May of 2023. So that is graph number 1. And we've indicated the source of our data there. The second graph that we are going to draw for the president is basically, this is a graph. You've got your y-axis there, and you have your x-axis there. So again, these are months in office by President HH. And again here we are going to divide this in intervals of 5. So you've got 5, 10, 15, 20. So those are intervals, months in office. He is currently sitting at about 21 months. And then here we are going to outline the fuel price in kwacha. Fuel price. So you need to forgive my handwriting. It might not be very clear. So here again, before we go very far, come this side. Before we go very far, it is very important for us to outline the source of our data, which we are going to use to develop a graph. Because a graph cannot be developed from the air, from space. No, it has to be developed from specific data. And if it is a genuine graph, you need to state the source of your data. So the source of our data is ERB, which is the Energy Regulation Board, which means anyone who wants to verify our graph can go to the ERB website and look at the prices that ERB has been announcing from time to time. Okay, so here we'll start, we'll put this in intervals of 5. So we'll put this at 15 kwacha. And then that will be our 20 kwacha. and then that will be our 25 kwacha, and that will be our 30 kwacha. So when the president was sworn into office, which is on the 24th of August 2021, he found the fuel price at 17 kwacha. He found the fuel price somewhere here, which is 17 kwacha. As we speak right now, so here fuel price, we are looking at the average of all prices, that is diesel, petrol, as well as kerosene, although kerosene is not on the market at the moment. So we are looking at an average of those prices. So he found the prices at an average of 17 kwacha, and the prices went to as high as 29 kwacha before subsequently dropping to around 24 kwacha. So if we were to plot this graph, it would go something like this. And then it dropped to about 24 kwacha against the 21 months that he has been in office. So when you look at this graph, countrymen and women, you realize that in as much as there are certain months where fuel prices dropped, the drop was not significant. It was a very minor drop. But when you look at the increments, you realize that the increment is big, the drop is small. The increment is big, the drop is small. The increment is big, the drop is small, just like that. So this, to some extent, explains the policy of the UPND administration, according to Vice President Mutale Nalumango, that they increase in order to reduce. So they would increase by 5 kwacha and reduce by 1 kwacha. They increase by 3 kwacha, they reduce by 50 ngwe, just like that. Now, what is important for you to observe is that there is an upward increment in prices in the past 21 months, from around 17 kwacha to the 24 kwacha that we are standing at the moment. So these are the two graphs that we have decided to prepare for President Hakainde Hichilema, so that he can understand the hardships that the Zambian people are going through. And right now, we are going to start off, but we'll continue streaming all the way to State House. Hopefully, today we're going to find the president. Hopefully today we are going to find the president, because last time we went to take a calculator for him, we didn't find him. They told us he's busy. But these graphs are very important, so we would be happy if we can find him there. We hope he's not going to be busy for us. This is a very important issue for the Zambian people. So I think we can start off, gentlemen. Yeah, it's a very important issue for the Zambian people. And also, you must remember that the president likes to use graphs to basically explain things, just like we saw during the press conference. And not only does he like to use graphs, but he's very emotional when anyone challenges his graphs, as we saw from that exchange of words with that Catholic priest, Father Sarangeta, who tried to explain to him that people in Chawama might not understand graphs. He was very emotional about it. So we are hopeful that with this present we are taking for him, the present of graph, the president is going to be happy that we have actually remembered. Okay. Okay. We are hopeful that the president is going to be very happy that we have not only given him a present, a gift, a birthday gift, but that the birthday gift actually includes a graph. Now, countrymen and women, these issues that we're talking about here might look like it's a joke. There might be some humor in all this, but that humor should not, water down the importance of the issues that we're talking about. These two critical issues, which are somewhat related, but still distinct. Because we are talking about the issue of, we're passing through a small gravel road, which is a bit bumpy, a couple of potholes, but we shall soon be in a smoother road, so you need to forgive us for that. So I was explaining to say, in as much as there might be some humor in this gift that we are presenting to the president, this is something that is very important, because when you look at the cost of living has significantly gone up over, let me just speak this call. Yes, tirimjira hapa tukuya so tipezani kwa mena mwanyamu kamwe. Oh, okay, all right, you can just wait for us outside here. All right, that's fine. Okay, so that is another engagement that I was talking about after we are done giving our gift to the Republican president. So I was explaining to say the issue of the cost of living is a very important issue, because when the Zambian people changed government in 2021, they, of course, different people had different reasons for voting UPND into office, but one of the underlying reasons was the cost of living. People were promised that the UPND will reduce the cost of living, that people are going to be buying meal at 50 kwacha, that fertilizer will be sold at 200 kwacha, but we have seen that fertilizer now is at about 1,000 kwacha, and meal is more than 200 kwacha. So the cost of living has gone up. And then not only that, but even money is very difficult to come by these days. There is very little money in circulation, which is very regrettable. So we just joined Tarmac here as we head to State House. We are passing our local police station here, police station. So those are the issues, countrymen and women. The cost of living is very high, and the UPND administration does not seem to have any plan to actually reduce the cost of living. Previously, we were told that once the IMF deal is finalized, the cost of living will come down and things will begin to fall into place. But even that is not going anywhere. As we speak right now, the government is literally on standby, waiting for that IMF loan disbursement of about $190 million. And that is a loan. You know, one of the things that President Hakainde Hichilema promised the Zambian people was that once he ascends into office, he is going to dismantle the debt which had been accumulated by different administrations. But instead of dismantling that debt, we are seeing that the president and his government are now increasing on that debt. When they took over office in 2021, Zambia's external debt was around 11.5 billion. As we speak right now, it is more than 13 billion. So which means they have borrowed, in fact it is more than 14 billion, which means they have borrowed a total of about $2.5 billion just on external debt in the past 21 months that they have been in office. And that is a very high rate of contraction of debt. It's a very high rate. And if the previous administration, if the PF administration was contracting debt at the rate at which the UPND are contracting debt, which is an average of about 2 billion per year, then as we speak right now, the debt would have been very high. So the rate at which UPND is contracting debt is higher, far much higher than the rate at which previous administrations, MMD and PF, were contracting debt, which should be a source of concern to the Zambian people, especially given the fact that at the time that the UPND were taking over office, our debt levels were already on the high side. Our expectation was that President Hakainde Hichilema would have a plan of action to basically reduce the debt. And you don't reduce debt by contracting more debt. You reduce debt by beginning to pay off the debt. That is how you reduce debt. And so far, President Hakainde Hichilema and his administration have not paid anything. They have essentially done a moratorium, what they call a moratorium on debt repayments, pending the finalization of the debt restructuring agreement. So they have not paid a single way since they came into office, but they keep on contracting debt, which is a source of concern to us. But the cost of living is totally unbearable. It is totally unbearable. When you go manyumba umu, makomboni umu, vantu wagonera kandoro. Ero nota ati kandoro ati yozura pambale. Kandoro imozi wagawa na kandoro 1-1. Munga wagawa na mapisi ya nyama. Koma ni kandoro. Wamwerapo na manzi. They can't even afford tea because they can't afford sugar. Kandoro chabe pisi ya kandoro. Wamwerapo na manzi. Wagona wantu. Not Kumunzi, not in the outskirts of Lusaka, but here in Lusaka. That is how high the cost of living is. And then in terms of unemployment, a lot of companies have closed down. A lot of people have been laid off. Plus, those people who already didn't have jobs, the levels of unemployment are very, very high out there. Very, very high. And the worst part of it is that we don't seem to have any plan of action from government. If President Hakainde Hichilema really meant well for this country, what he should have done was to call for an endeavor, an economic endeavor, so that he can get some ideas from the general public, from the private sector, from other opposition leaders. Because it is evident that him and his government do not have the knowledge and ideas which are necessary to turn around our economy. They don't seem to have that. If they had that, they would have implemented those ideas. But it is very evident that they don't have those ideas. And we cannot just be on standby. We can't just be on standby. We need to be able to make progress as a nation. If one administration, one government does not have ideas of turning around the economy, then other people need to be consulted and given a chance. Like we have always stated in the past, the issue of running a government is not a one-man activity. It's a collective activity which requires the participation of all Zambians. That is how you run a government. No one on this earth can claim to you that they've got infinite knowledge to run a government by themselves, to run a government among their inner circle. Then you're not going to go anywhere. If you are going to successfully run a government, you need to consult as widely as possible. And when you consult and people give you ideas, you should not look at those ideas as a challenge to your own knowledge. You should not have too much pride as a president, which is the challenge that we have here in Zambia, because anyone who questions the approach taken by the new Dawn administration in managing the economic affairs of a nation is looked upon as an enemy. Even someone complains, when someone complains about the presentation that is actually made in terms of graphs to the nation, and the fact that the majority of Zambians might not understand those graphs, you find that the president takes those complaints very personally. You must remember that the president spends most of his time at State House, or if he goes to officiate, he officiates at expensive hotels, and he rubs shoulders with the people who have money. So it's very possible that the president loses touch with reality. And the people who have constant touch with reality, constant touch with the ground, are the churches. Not only the Roman Catholic Church, but all the churches in general, especially churches in these shanty compounds, because they deal with the problems of the community on a continuous basis. So if you ask me, Father Sarangeta, being someone who is based in Chawama, was in a very strong position to advise and explain to the president, to say, Mr. President, people are looking for hope. People are looking for your vision in terms of how you are going to turn things around. And it's been a couple of months, more than 6 months, since the president addressed the nation through a press conference. And so when he announced to say, no, Apa Mairo, I'm holding a press conference, everybody looks forward to that, to hear what plans the president is going to present to the nation in terms of job creation, in terms of reducing the cost of living, and so on and so forth. That is what people look forward to. But if the president then proceeds to address the nation, but he's only talking about, issues of what his predecessors achieved or did not achieve, and fails to talk about how he is going to reduce the cost of living or create employment, then people have a right to complain. People have a right to complain and say, Mr. President, people in the compounds and everywhere else are looking for food. Varefaya uwali, varefaya urutoshi, wafuna ntongo ya nsima. Ayo magrafa ayo, mkazishitako presenting ati maenda kuwapunzira anzanu. Kuma conference uko kwa mene maenda uko vyaro, ndeko pereka magrafa. Ise Mzambia muno, majority of the people, you should explain to us in terms of how you intend to reduce the cost of living, how you intend to reduce the cost of mini meal, and what is going to happen to the farmers wamene wanalima soybeans. Wamene wanalima soybeans, because the president, committed himself to the Zambian people to say he has secured a market for soybeans in China, and that the people can proceed to grow soybeans. And last year, since there was a challenge with fertilizer, a lot of people grew soybeans. Even myself, I grew soybeans. As we speak right now, I've got, in excess of 300 tons of soybeans. Of course, it is still in the field. I haven't completed the harvest, but it will soon be ready. I'll soon have it ready. The question is, how am I going to sell that soybeans if the government even failed to come up with a minimum selling price? Because we are going to be exploited by the private sector. Already I've heard stories of some briefcase businessmen offering to buy soybeans at as little as 300 kwacha per 50 kg bag. As little as 250 kwacha per 50 kg bag. So, how can a bag of soybeans begin to be compared to a bag of maize? Because soybeans and maize, you can't begin to compare those two. They are too far apart. You can't begin to compare those two. So we are very concerned that the majority of our citizens who happen to be farmers are going to actually be exploited. They are going to be exploited by these briefcase businessmen simply because the president failed to keep his word that he was going to buy soybeans, and that he had secured the market for that soybeans. When you are Republican president, your word should be credible. If you tell the people to say you are going to buy soybeans, then you need to buy soybeans. You might not buy the expected quantities. Let me just pick this one. Yes, Chair. Muripat. Okay, immediately pa front pa shop we'll be there in about 5 minutes. Just. will pick up chair. Yeah, so as I was saying, it is very regrettable, and you begin to wonder the advisors for President Hakainde Hichilema, because for a president, when you give an assurance to the people to say you have secured a market for soybeans from China and that people can proceed to plant soybeans, then you need to honor that promise. You are the head of state, you know, you are the head of state. How can you have a head of state who cannot keep his word, his own word to the people? Because President Hakainde, when he was making that promise, no one really forced him. Kutiambo kamba vakuti no napeza market ku China shani you can grow soybeans. No one forced him. He just started talking by himself. By himself, he started talking. Now the time for harvest comes, people have got soybeans, and then the president says, no, I will not buy the soybeans. And he doesn't even explain why. He doesn't even offer any alternative. He's just quiet about it. And when someone challenges him to say, President, why are you failing to keep your word? At no, I introduced free education. Kenya free education is a different issue. Kenya soybeans nayo is a different issue. Your free education, before people can utilize that free education, they need to have food in their stomachs. And in Zambia, people use agriculture as a business. So you'll find that if they decide that, oh, okay, this year it's Zarima soybeans, they are going to go to the bank, that asebenza muntu azaenda ku bank, they go and borrow money to buy seeds and to pay laborers and to clear the land. Some of them even rent the farm. They don't own the farm where they grow. They rent it. So walipira rent kuri wene wake wa farm. Oh, nchalengo ni rent farm yan for this season, I'll pay so much. Nilimeko soybeans because the president has promised that there is a ready market in China for soybeans. You know, there is a ready market in China for soybeans. And yet, when the time comes for harvest, the president is failing to keep his word to the people. Then what kind of a president is that? So the president needs to work on that. He needs to be more credible. He needs to increase his levels of integrity, because at the moment he is not credible and his levels of integrity are actually quite low. They are very low actually. And for a president, you cannot have a president wakwawachi vantu vanakusula ukakamba chintu vanga chekumbali monga swana mvere monga swana kuona vakusula because you don't have integrity. You don't have your word is not credible. That is what is slowly happening to President Hakainde Hichilema, and that cannot be good for the nation. It cannot be good for the nation. That is why for us, even if we are in the opposition, we are advising the president to say, President, learn to keep your word, be a credible man, be a man of his word. A man is only as good as his word. You see what I mean? A man is only as good as his word. Yes, a man is only as good as his word. So those are some of the challenges. And then the issue of fuel prices, which we have put in the graph that we are taking to the president as a birthday present. The issue of the fuel prices. You know, fuel prices, the policy that the president and his administration have adopted, where fuel prices are being reviewed on a monthly basis, it causes too much fluctuations. And for an economy to grow, it needs to be stable. The key economic parameters need to be stable. That's when an economy can grow. That is when economic players can be able to plan. If the economic players are not able to plan, then an economy cannot grow. It cannot grow. So that is where the issue is. That is where the issue is. For us, we have advised the president to say, look, there is nowhere that we know of, anywhere in the world, where they have a policy of revising fuel prices on a monthly basis. Every month, mwachinja mitengo ya fuel. Every month, mwachinja mitengo ya fuel. There is nowhere, because people need to be able to plan. Without planning, you cannot invest. because economic players need to be able to plan. Not only plan short term or medium term, but be able to plan long term as well. So we propose to the president to say, why don't you revise fuel prices at least on a quarterly basis? If you feel you need to revise regularly, why not revise on a quarterly basis, which is every 3 months as a minimum? Ideally, if I was president of this country, I would only revise fuel prices once every year. On the 1st of every year, I revise fuel prices, either increasing or reducing, but once a year. That would ensure stability. And when you look at the way other administrations, specifically the MMD administration, handled this issue of fuel, the MMD came up with a very brilliant concept where they came up with the concept of the fuel stabilization fund. So the way this fund operated is that when fuel prices reduce on the world market, then the extra profit that government would make would be put in that fund. And then when fuel prices increase on the world market, money would be taken from that fund to subsidize fuel prices, thereby ensuring that fuel prices are reasonably stable in the in the short to medium term, and that they are only revised under very extenuating circumstances. So that provided a lot of stability. That is why under MMD we saw that the economy was stable and it was growing, compared to where we are now, where the economy is only growing in the eyes of UPND officials. UPND wanzatu waklema the economy is growing. In fact, the president was claiming that he has over-delivered. That he has over-delivered. Only God knows what exactly he has over-delivered on since he came into office. But again, it shows you, it explains to you, you know, the possibility that the entire UPND administration might be living, you know, in a vacuum of its own. They seem not to be connected to the plight of the people. You know, if you're going to make progress, economic progress, and be able to help the well-being of the people, the starting point is to accept and acknowledge that things are not okay. That is number one, starting point. Number two step that you need to take is to develop a plan of action. You need to acknowledge that that is number one step. Very important for you as a president. Very important to listen to and appreciate the cries of the people. That is when you now realize that okay, so and so it shouldn't go to that extent. You know, it shouldn't go to that extent whereby people decide to riot for you to realize that no, people are truly hungry in their homes, the way it happened in 1990 when we had those food riots. It shouldn't come to that. You as a leader should be able to hear the cries of the people. Once you hear and acknowledge the plight of the people, next step, develop a plan. Up to now, the New Dawn administration do not have an economic turnaround plan. And yet, the president always talks about turning around the economy. He always talks about turning around the economy. And yet, there is no turnaround plan. You know, that on its own is an issue of concern, very big concern. Very big concern. It's an issue of great concern. It's an issue of great concern. So, there is no acknowledgement from the president that things are not okay. There is no plan of action from the president on how he is going to make things better. Because you can only have a plan of action to make things better if you have acknowledged that things are not okay. So we are not going anywhere. We are not making any progress. Because you are supposed to acknowledge that things are not okay and then have a plan of action. And then after a plan of action, you then proceed to implement that plan of action. Watch the implement plan of action. If it is an economic turnaround plan, watch the implement economic turnaround plan yamene washita develop. That is how you proceed. And then once you implement, obviously what you are going to plan and the way that plan is going to be implemented, there will be a bit of a difference. There will be a bit of a difference. Sometimes the plan might not be as effective as you had planned on paper. So you need to monitor that implementation now. You are implementing your turnaround plan, you monitor the implementation, and then when you monitor and you realize deviations in your plan, then you implement corrective measures. Yeah, so you implement those corrective measures based on the deviations that you might have identified as you implement your plan. We're supposed to pick up our comrade here. Hello? Hello? Hello, Mkaji? Yeah, so you essentially do that, and then people can begin to people will appreciate that the president is doing something. The president is doing something to actually address the plight of the Zambian people. You know, you'll be seen as making an effort. Comrade, where are you? Hey, where's the one? Along which road? Pashopo. It's not going again. It's a bit of it. Are you inside your... We can see you. What are you wearing? The black one? Cheer. Okay, double. Yeah, oh yeah. I come back to 100 meters away. Come on out. That's ridiculous. So is it a shop? When the side you.
So my now I'm to end up. I'm going to say you come and I was stepping here. Okay. I think you know what to nice now. I'm Chinese. I was expecting like Christian Prado or something.
You're gonna go different, Yeah, so we were explaining to say, for the sake of the Zambian people, it's very important that people have hope, because hope is very important. Without hope, you know, people become disgruntled, people lose faith in an administration, and you know, people resort to desperate measures. It is very important for a government to build hope in the people. Even if things are bad, the way they are bad, if you are able to inculcate hope in the people, then people might be, you know, patient, and people will have something to look forward to. And like I said earlier, you know, the way you build hope in the people is first of all to acknowledge that things are not okay on the ground, that the cost of living is very high, that the economy is not doing well. Once you acknowledge as president, then people will know that since we acknowledge the president at Vinto Civil Bueno, that was a plan manje, how to make things better. But if you are in denial, you are a president and you are in denial, ukana vantu vakuza kuti vintu sipiri bwino iwe ukambati awe have over-delivered. Awe a president vintu sipiri bwino iwe urimbikira awe have over-delivered. You are not acknowledging. Then obviously you are not going to proceed to come up with any plan to change things, because to you things are okay. Things are okay. You are not going to come up with any turnaround plan. You are not going to implement any plan. You are not going to monitor any plan. You are not going to carry out any corrective measures on any plan. So we are almost dead and buried, so to speak. Okay, picture market. The guy in the profit. Okay. Yes. So, Chairman, first gentlemen, in program with Jainango, we are running behind time. Yeah, so those are the issues. So as things stand, there is no hope. There is no hope under the current administration, and if there is no hope, it means that the only thing that the Zambian people can do now is to consider changing the leadership of this country. Kwikako vantu vamene vangangaleko serious na kurunning aziko. Kwikako vantu vamene swazaika, their personal pride ahead of the interests of the Zambian people, whereby if anyone tells him that no, your approach is not working, muntu avitenga person akwiya ifyana pamenso. Mayo ifya pamenso kwa mani business yacharo. This is a business of the nation. We need to advise you what you are doing is not effective on the ground. And when we advise you, you need to be able to listen to what people are saying. Sufunika as a reader, sufunika wa Pakistan tota. Yeah. Tota sufunika za chepa. You need to have a listening ear. You need to be humble. And you need to basically put yourself in the shoes of the people that you are governing. So that's the kind of leader that is needed. So far, we are very far from that. And it's regrettable because when you look at the level of disappointment on the faces of a lot of people, you can tell that people expected a lot. Because the current president, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, on paper, he looks very good. On paper, he looks very good. He looks like, a great president. The kind of president that the nation would have been looking forward to. You look at his credentials, businessman, he knows how the economy operates, this and that, you would expect him to deliver. Maybe not to the full expectation of the people, but even half. If he was able to deliver, even a quarter of the expectations of the people, that would go a long way. But he has failed. He has completely failed to deliver. And not only that, most people, it's just that for now, some people are still in denial because of the disappointment. They can't believe that the person they put there is, failing to this extent. They can't believe. So they are in denial, even in shock to some extent. But that will only go on for so long. My advice, some of us knew this from the very beginning. That's why we told the people from the word go to say, okay, fine, we the Zambian people have changed government, but the person you have put there is not the right person. From the word go, we said that. And people were saying, no, Vashon Tembo, use Los Angeles. People were saying, no, Vashon Tembo, you are jealous. You are jealous because you left the opposition alliance. If you didn't leave, you might have been a minister by now. So you are jealous. That is why you like attacking the New Dawn. But, the bottom line is that for us, we love this country. We always put the interests of the people first. And when I know that these people will not take us anywhere, I have a duty and obligation to warn the Zambian people. Kuti aba bamenye mwaikapo kulibe kwa menye waza chipeleka because walibe idea. Ndio problem ilipo. Idea palibe abantu ise tibaziba tenze nawo mwaransi tenzo vera bamenye wenzo kamba tenzo vera ma discussion ya menye wenzo tenzo kamba nawo ifetiziba atawa bantu bali empty. You know? That is what we said. And that was well founded. People said, no, it's too early, you know. And then 1 year passed. And then wapasa magraph. Magraph first. So you realize that there's nowhere we are going. Because the people who are ruling us, the people who are governing us, are closed-minded. They are not willing to accept the reality, which is the fact that things are not okay. For as long as you can't accept reality, it means that you are not going to be able to change things. You can only change things if you accept reality that that direction that we took of going to the IMF was a very bad decision, because once you are on an IMF program, you can't do a lot of things. You can't do infrastructure development, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that, you know. For a country like ours, we need investments like infrastructure, school, classrooms, so that they don't learn from outside the tree, you know, under a tree. We need a lot of those things. But unfortunately, we are not making progress in that regard, or because of the IMF route. And the IMF decision, some of us challenged it from the way to go. We said this is a wrong way to go. Right now, even levels of support, they are stuck with it. The IMF is refusing to make another disbursement. So far, Wanawa Pasakota Bay about 300 and something million, 350 million out of the 1.3 billion. There was an amount of about 190 million which was due. The IMF is refusing to release that money because the government has failed to achieve debt restructuring. So those are the issues. This route that we've gone, we are not making progress. The best that the government can do for now is to withdraw from this IMF. They need to withdraw immediately, and once they withdraw, they proceed to implement, you know, a local solution, locally grown economic solution to our challenges. Because my challenges here, you know, they are not that much compared to the resources that we have. They are not that much. So government needs to consider withdrawing from the IMF. We are just about to reach State House, where the president is. Our present for him is ready here. So we have this graph which we are going to present to the president. We hope he's available. We are here at State House now. So that we don't have to walk too long. It would have been nice to find the president waiting for us at the gate, you know. It would have been nice. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. If we found the president at the gate, we would have sung happy birthday to you. But I doubt. So, let's just say birthday gift for President Hichilema. Birthday gift for President Hichilema. Ili chabe bwenye so chabe. Che, yona kamo.
That's fine.
That's fine, huh? Birthday
That's okay.
gift
For President Hichilema, yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Then, so we have two graphs.
Okay.
One graph is with regard to the cost of living versus the months that he has been in office, which has obviously been skyrocketing. So the source of this information is the JCTR Basic Foods Basket, which is the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection. That monthly Basic Foods Basket for a family of 5.
Yes.
And then we have this other one. This is the cost of fuel versus the months that he has been in office. So again, the source of this is ERB. Yes. Yeah. I'm sure these graphs will be sufficient for his birthday. And will be great help to him. Okay, so Jenny, Okay, so we have delivered our 61st birthday gift to President Hakainde Hichilema here at State House, which was basically made up of two graphs, one showing the cost of living versus the months that he has been in office, And of course, the source of that data is the monthly JCTR Basic Foods Basket for a Family of 5. JCTR stands for the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection. Now, JCTR has been very consistent in publishing the monthly basic food basket price or cost for the past couple of months now, or the past couple of years or decades, so to speak. And their data is reliable. And so far, I think it is something that could be used to generate the graphs. So we are hopeful that the president will go through our graphs so that you can see the plight of the Zambian people in terms of the cost of living. And then we also included a graph regarding fuel prices. And again, the source of our data was the Energy Regulation Board. So we are hopeful that the president will take those graphs, those two important graphs, into consideration and reflect on them and see how we can address those two important issues, the cost of living and of course the high cost of fuel. Like I indicated earlier, the two issues have a direct relationship because the cost of living is to a large extent driven by the cost of fuel. So that is the connection there. So right now we are just heading to another engagement somewhere, and I want to thank you all, everyone who tuned in to witness, us display our, love for our president by delivering a gift to him. And perhaps I can take this opportunity to appeal to other Zambians out there to also consider delivering a gift to the president. It might have been late, but better late than never. You can deliver any type of gift that you think is appropriate. For us, we felt a graph was appropriate. If you think a cake is appropriate, then you can deliver a cake. If you think another graph would be appropriate, then you can deliver another graph. So thank you very much and enjoy your afternoon. Thank you.